Yeah, look, the first few days, especially, like I was in a very bad way, and pretty heavily sedated with morphine, and so I think the thing with that is I didn't even know if I was awake or asleep half the time. It was it was just a really a really really blurry time. But I do remember just sort of just feeling like my life was over, because prior to that, I was a pretty talented athlete. I had, really clear plans for what I was going to do with my life. I wanted to be a vet. I'd gotten into one of the, probably the, a very iconic, Sydney selective agricultural school for my secondary schooling. And so that was like the perfect next step to becoming a vet. So everything I identified as and everything I had that I was looking forward to just it was gone. So that was incredibly tough. And the other thing was I was flat on my back for 8 weeks, actually, with sandbags either side of my head. So it was like you spend a lot of time just staring at the ceiling. And I remember at sometimes just the ceiling, particularly in intensive care and stuff, where I spent the first few days, it was like had all these little dots in the ceiling, and I remember actually just counting one side, this side, multiplying it, just trying to figure out how many dots there were on the ceiling, because that was just all there really was in front of me at that time. So yeah, it was, and then I had my mum was with me most of the time, but for the most part, it was just just really feeling incredibly sick, and but yeah, it was a lot of fear as well, because it was like I couldn't feel or move most of my body at that point in time either. It was definitely a scary and very blurry time.
I mean, it's one thing as an adult, but 12 years old, my gosh. I mean, you mentioned you had dreams of becoming a vet. You mentioned you're athletic. I mean, what kind of things did you do beforehand? Did you have some favorite sports or?
Yeah, so I was the pitcher in the softball team.
Okay.
I was the first girl to play soccer for my school. This was like in the late
Wow.
80s.
Wow.
I represented the school at every distance from the 100 meters through to the cross country as a runner. So I was very gifted as an athlete. I was incredibly active. It was like I ran everywhere. I'd come home from school and I'd go of an afternoon and run for a couple of, I'll say kilometers, but
Yeah.
miles. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was like so pretty much I identified as an athlete, and then academically it was all about becoming a vet, and that was what it was. So I said all the things that I loved, and that wasn't there. So and the thing was, for me, it was so difficult to go from being such a fiercely independent,
Hmm.
active young woman, to then being just completely stuck, and not even to be able to scratch my head or turn the page of a book or feed myself or do any of those things. It was pretty soul destroying at that time.